Please join me as I welcome Lola Esan.
Thank you so much. Good morning. You know you can never get used to hearing your citation, eh? Sometimes there's a little tickle you get. But thank you so much for the honor. So it's a real pleasure to be here this morning and to just share a topic which is quite important to me and also the reality of the time. So this is not to paint a dreary picture, but following Jibola's presentation, you do agree that it's no longer business as usual. So I mean, I found that example about the MD who said the HR director is leaving. So that means employee engagement no longer exists. The reality is we will continue to move and people will continue to move. But as HR practitioners, the onus is on us to decide whether it's a good thing, it's a bad thing, or whether it's something we need to live with and embrace. So I'll just be sharing some pointers around global mobility and how it impacts corporate sustainability. So, in terms of what global mobility is, without boring us really, it's essentially the movement of people across borders. So, it can either be through global or even within domestic arrangements. So, if I move from Lagos to Abuja to work, it's still mobility, even though it might not be global until I cross international waters. Now, some of the implications, of course, for that is apart from the fact that it affects movement, it affects your workforce plan, there are also cost implications around movement. So I know when I did the GPHR certification in 2012, there was a huge topic that had tax, and I remember telling myself, I'm in Nigeria, when am I ever going to need this thing? But let me just do it and pass, Sha. Thankfully, I passed one attempt. So we didn't, I'm not sure we had certification edge at the time. We didn't, so some of us had to read by ourselves. But thank God you have this benefit, this opportunity. So you're lucky. We were not as lucky. So in terms of global mobility, we also need to look at tax and compliance issues. So back to Jibola's topic, once upon a time, tax was what the accountants did. But as an HR practitioner, you have to understand workforce planning. You have to understand laws across where I am in Nigeria, where the person is going. You have to understand taxation. So the truth is, the profession as we know it is no longer the same. You would also have to understand immigration. You're not an NIS immigration officer. Well, why should you? But these days, you must understand because global mobility is the reality you have to work with as an HR practitioner. Now, these days, as we all know, it's no longer because my company is sending you anywhere. What are some of the triggers of why people are moving across? I can even jettison the slides and we'll just talk. What are some of the, I mean, all of us have done send-off party for friends, for colleagues, and it's all on account of what? Global mobility. One of the places where I work, there's a particular department where 23 people went to one particular country. Any guess? Thank you very much. That department is empty. Empty. 23 people left. Now, I know at the time they're grappling with the reality of, okay, this is a firm, an audit business where you have audit cycles. The team that you've trained to do the work are no longer in town, in place to do it. They've moved somewhere else. So really, is that a problem or it's a benefit? Sorry? Well, we should say with confidence now. You can't be in this. Is it a problem or it's an opportunity? Sorry? I think it's an opportunity. Sorry? Okay, problem. Raise up your hand. It's a problem. Let's be courageous. Encourage. A problem. Raise up your hand. People were saying problem. Problem. So for okay, no, obviously as individual relocating. So in this room, we're talking about business now. As a business, is this a problem or an opportunity? Problem. Raise up your hand. Opportunity. Raise up your hand. Eh? Problem, opportunity. Okay, so can you please share why it's an opportunity for the business?
It's an opportunity for the business because I do not see borders. There are no borders. I'm able to interact. I'm able to network. I'm able to know what's happening on the other side, and I'm able to update. So, opportunity for me.
Okay. I like that. So no borders, and that's the reality. So even though I live in Lagos, my headquarters is in Lagos. The realities of the business, as we saw in the future of HR, are coming from different terrains. So as an organization, should you say your people are going, say, okay, I'm not giving you reference letter because you're going to Canada, or embrace it, or even now relax some of your policies around leave of absence. So we'll get there, but let me not preempt my slides. It's a problem. Quickly, it's a problem. Yeah.
country, like there are some laws. But if you're in the technology space, you really don't care. They're delivering code, they're pushing things out. So it depends on the context. But the key problem I see there is upskilling people who might not even be ready to take up that responsibility.
Thanks. I like that part of it's really about the context. But you know, Jibola said something about upskilling. The way we look at training is no longer the same. Training is now 24/7, online, real time, available. You can multiply it in different sources. So it's possible to actually have too many skills than you need at a particular time. Unlike back in the day where someone went on training, then came back, then trained others, and then you make the person to sign a bond, which we'll get to, and why some people do that. So let's move on. So let's look at some fact sheets around mobility. Canada ranks number 9 and top list of 20 most livable cities in the world. So no, I mean, you can obviously see why everyone's going to Canada. But someone was just telling me yesterday that people are now coming back from Canada. So I thought, really? Because they ended up going there and they realized it was not a bed of roses. But I mean, we'll move on. Millennials represent 38% of the globally mobile workforce. So this was a survey done by Mesa in 2015. It is predicted that by 2050, over 80% of the population available to work in Nigeria would be millennials. In Ernst & Young right now, 75% of our workforce are millennials. 75 are millennials in 2018. So millennials are one of the generations of people who consider the prospects of a job must have travel, otherwise they won't take it. I sat in a training once when the HRD of LNG was complaining that he doesn't even understand what's going on anymore. That usually there's a budget of about 30 million when you come in to train you, to go through the ranks as an engineer and all of that. They had hired this particular young man. First, he wrote them to say he wanted 3 months off because he was traveling and he would come back to take the job. They waited. Then he came back and asked them, okay, so this their job, what will happen? Well, I said, well, for 2 years, you will be in training. And because it's a technical training, you will not be able to do, they gave him the list of things. Okay, so this training, how many locations will it be? He said, well, it depends. Some people are going to Asia, some people are going to London. Okay, but outside that, what else? So he asked all those questions and said, well, he did not think it was possible for him to take a job that required that he be a bit stable for 2 years, and he turned down the job. He turned down the job in LNG. Think about that. Because it did not have the potential of traveling as he would like. And increasingly, we're seeing that is happening. So you want the skills, you want the people, but somehow they tell you, if I don't have the fluidity to move as I like, it would not work. So if you're still thinking being able to work has to be when you open the door and say, hey, all these many people work for me, then you will not likely not have the kind of talent you need. And Jibola said something about the fact that these days, even with managing taxation, because there's a cost associated with seeing headcounts, there's certain things that statutorily you must even do because you're carrying those bodies. So if you embrace the concept of mobility as another in-source approach for talent, you're likely to even benefit on the upside of not just getting the people you want, but also managing the overheads of running your business. Then new mobility approaches are important for balancing costs and competitive employee programs. I talked about how for a millennial population, opportunity to travel is important. And then EY, in our global effectiveness survey, we said, look, for establishing footholds in strategic markets and for creating future leaders, vital international exposure is a must. So it's not a maybe, it's not something you do because my manager likes me, so I will go on secondment or I'll go on that project. It is now something we need to actively begin to consider as part of our talent management strategy. So, what are some of the reasons? Oops, this is going to be a challenge. So first is the shift in global economic power. I don't think we need to do too much conversation around that. Once upon a time, there were only major markets. These days, we're seeing the power shifting. Google recently opened an analytics lab in Accra. And everyone is like, why not Nigeria? Why not SA? Why not Joburg? The truth is, those stereotypes around where you should situate anything is changing. And you can have a fantastic strategy. But if you don't have the people to deliver the strategy, it's as dead as the paper is written on. So mobility cannot be something we treat as something that happens or the way you reward loyal employees. It is something you need to weave into your talent management strategy. Maybe your line of business, you started out, the area where it was booming was in Nigeria. You realize that the focus has moved to Ghana, Indonesia, wherever. Again, someone talked about no borders. We have to consider a situation where we can harness and access that talent, vice versa, without considering the restriction. So I know, and then we've been following Nigeria. They talked about ease of doing business. You've been following that. One of the triggers for ease of doing business is actually the need to make organizations more seamless. So Nigeria is supposed to be a hotspot for tech, for oil and gas, for so many things. But people find it difficult coming in and moving out. So they're saying, look, it's important to have a situation where people can come and go as they please. Then skills gap. The truth is, there is the era of, I know, yes, we took a pledge that will be an island of knowledge, not an island of people who are not interacting. So it's knowledge. And knowledge does not reside in one physical location. We have got to do that exchange. So these days, you realize that you cannot train people totally. In some places, it is even cheaper. I'll let you in on a secret. Just yesterday, we're having a meeting in EY. And we've now set up something called global delivery centers, where they found out it is cheaper to actually get people from certain parts of the world to do work in Nigeria than Nigerians doing it. So a few of us were like, but isn't that going to lead to loss of jobs and not the standard problem, loss of jobs? And someone was like, no, it just means we need to up our game, because what will happen is there will be some skills or some abilities that by virtue of the way they train their talent, they can't do it. So the average Nigerian, to get a return on investment per Nigerian who works on the project, it's about $100 for you to make money. But from some of those countries, they would actually charge about $10 to $15. Now, if I'm using $10 to $15 on a project as against a resource that costs me $100, it means I will come to people like you, my clients, with proposals that are a lot more reasonable. You will get an international flavor because it is not just the Nigerian staff doing it. You would also get an opportunity to tap into a market that you ordinarily would not have been able to access without the restrictions of local content. Why is this person doing it? And it's the same thing, not just in my organization. When we have a borderless world, issues around this skill resides in India, this skill resides here, will no longer be the case. We would cross-pollinate effectively. Urbanization. So in this case, this could apply to both domestic mobility and then global mobility. A lot of people, of course, you finish school, you move to Lagos. Lagos is supposed to be El Dorado. And then you realize that, the streets are not really paved with gold, though. And then you move somewhere else. Now, there's a company, for example, in Lagos, who is a tech hub. They basically incubate digital products and innovation products. So I was asking the MD that, so where do you get your talent from? He said he realized that if he hires people out of Lagos, they want salaries that you really cannot afford to pay a fresher. So he's got an incubation hub in Ife, where they are actually employed by a company in Lagos, but they work and live in Ife. 10,000 naira in Lagos and 10,000 naira in Ife is not the same thing. So he's also incubated the same kind of hub in Nsukka. So that's also a situation where you don't have, so you want to work in Lagos, or you prefer not to work in Lagos, and you can be in Nsukka, Ife, or wherever it is. So these days, there are no borders around how we flow. And so the issues of urbanization, you're moving in, you find house, you find pressure, you're getting to work late and all of that, will not happen if you embrace mobility, because you can plug in anywhere and do your work. With technology, it's even better. I can be sitting somewhere on a beach and I have internet access. I can be in my village and be working. So it's seamless. It also then means that for organizations, we would not even spend so much on real estate. Because you can then just have a tiny hub, but your people are in different places and you're moving them around, getting information and the talent and the ideas or whatever it is you need to work. Emerging markets, competition, those are quite self-explanatory. And then demographics and social change. There are a lot more women in the workforce. And a lot of us, you find out that a woman joins an organization, super smart when she's young, and then she gets married and her husband tells you, hey, I'm going to Abuja. Or hey, I just got transferred to Kuwait. And then what happens is you now begin to have this conversation of, she's our best hand. Convince your husband to give you 2 years. Tell your husband that maybe, all those kind of conversations, they will embrace mobility. Bearing in mind that a physical structure is not an office. You can actually still have your Nigeria staff follow her husband to Kuwait. And she's working out of there, just that you agree the work packages, what she needs to do. But guess what? The person lives in Kuwait, will begin to see how they do things in Kuwait, see the differences, and then brings that update to your organization for free. So you are paying a Nigerian staff on Nigerian salary who is working in Kuwait and giving you the Kuwait flavor to how you do the work. So such organizations, when they change their websites, what kind of things will you see? Working with our offices and our associates across Lagos, Kuwait, they're not paying a dime, but they have Kuwait operation. So it's a win-win for all, really, when we look at what global mobility can do. Now, what are some companies who are practicing it? And these are Nigerian companies, by the way. Of course, it has to be EY. No, it's not a lie. So, I mean, that same meeting yesterday, we were discussing how people were going to Middle East, to SA, on projects. So the way now it works now with our project, again, embracing technology. Every single EY staff has their CV online. Every single EY staff. You can't go through the system and get your email account. You must tell the system the skills you have. So again, using AI to do the work. Now, when there's a project and I'm looking for talents who can build aeroplanes, if your CV has aeroplane building and I type in aeroplane building, it will pop up your name wherever you are. Automatically, you're in that project team. So it makes it easy to start projects. You might not have to travel to the location. Sometimes you might have to. But the point is, the world is so small now. Forget the geography, forget the sizes. That you can now walk across anywhere. There are times when you are doing projects and they are sick, and this happens regularly for me. There are 5 countries, we're on a project on Skype, and we're discussing, sharing ideas. At the end of the stick, who is benefiting? The client, because you're giving them that opportunity. And these are all companies that are in Nigeria. It's not as if they are away. So it's happening. Now, let's take it down a bit. Maybe you're thinking, yes, this is for the multinationals, and it won't apply to us. Even in your business, a lot of you have vendors that you work with in other rep offices. But you know that you have some staff who are thinking, look, I'm tired of being in Nigeria. Nothing stops you from actually telling the reps that you want to do some exchange program of sorts. So we're selling your products. We want to understand how it works. And now people come to you for a few months, weeks to see how things work. Exchange programs. Someone tell you, don't even worry. We won't pay you. We'll buy the ticket. Now, these things exist. If you have to ask. Particularly those of us who work in like companies where we resell products on behalf of companies here. Once you tell them, oh, we've been selling your products for a couple of years, we want a situation where some of our sales reps can come in to understand it so that we can improve the coverage of the market here. Companies are actually open to such things. If you don't ask, they won't put it forward. Virtually every organization has a budget for research, a budget for training and development, and that includes their third-party partners. But if you don't ask, no one's going to tell you. So those are things to also consider in terms of opportunities to enhance the employee experience. It's not all the time HMO, although these things matter. I don't think I've met anyone who doesn't want international exposure, and this is not a millennial thing. Forget the titles. Every single person will tell you, I would like to have international exposure at some point in time. So as HR practitioners, these are some of the experiences we can create for our staff. Now, let's talk a bit more about millennials. I know I sort of started talking through it. So, millennials started out again just like this topic on mobility. Before, if you said millennial, thank you. If you said millennial, people would just shout, those ones, they don't want to work, they are lazy. But the reality is, like in EY, 75% of our staff are millennials. So we can't afford to have it won't work. What do these guys want? For one, like I said earlier, they have a global mindset. Now, the pool all of us in this room are fishing from comprises more millennials. So it means that the policy can no longer be benefits, leave allowance, HMO. You have to have international exposure, the opportunity for international experience. And so we need to begin to find creative ways of creating that opportunity. It can be 1 week, it can be 2 weeks, it can be 1 month, it can be 2 months, 3 months. But trust me, there is something international exposure does to you. It's not the accent, by the way, that some people get from transiting through the airport. There is something international exposure does to you. And every single organization represented in this room can benefit from enhancing the way they do things. It would also give you a long-term benefit. So again, millennials, they consider long-term career benefits, not from the point of view of how many years you have spent in a place. So guys, the era of job for life is over. I'm sure you read my profile. You see that I have worked in a few places, and I don't think EY is my last. That's the reality. That is the reality. My mom works in the same place for 27 years. And I'll be like, why would you do that? Why would you limit the experience you can get? Now, if you don't want your people leaving, one way to manage or preserve what you have spent on them is to create the global mobility experience. All companies do that quite well, especially when they have a plan for you. So once you join, it's almost certain in 5 years, you are going to one country, maybe a smaller region. Even the FMCGs, they do that well. So by the time they begin to move you around, they are preparing you for certain positions. So for some people, even when you feel your career is at a rut, you're not quite sure where you're going, mobility is also a good opportunity to enhance or refresh the experience. Because we can take you to go and do the same role in Ghana. But the realities of working in Ghana, the culture, the customs, the insights changes your experience. Even though it was a lateral move. So it's not all the time that mobility is promotion. It can also be for you to enhance or improve some of the skills you have. And like I said, for those of us that probably don't work within multinational environments, we can create that experience with our partners. The average millennial, for example, if you ask them, what do you want to do? They tell you in 5 years, I want to be the MD of this company. So that means that in terms of what you consider a regular benefit, you've planned that when they've done 3 years, they'll go for SMP in LBS because it costs 5 million or 3 million. You better take that and create an opportunity for them in Togo or Benin Republic, because that for them is more mindful of what interests them. So we have to look at these things differently. One size fits all will not work for the HR profession anymore. Same for now, for millennials, money is actually not very important, but the experiences created from travel is. And there's statistics to back that. I mean, I gave you the LNG insights. The guy walked away from a plush package because they didn't give him the room and opportunity to travel. Which is why consulting firms, even though people complain, that are big four, they work them hard. Most people work in big four because mobility is almost a given. You will travel. It's not possible that you work in a consulting big four firm. You will travel. So millennials consider it natural destination. So make your organization a hotspot for top talent, because most professional services firms go after best graduating students anyway. So you need to find how you will create that experience. So don't say, I'm just an indigenous stockbroking firm. I don't think we can do mobility. Of course you can. There are stockbroking firms in other parts, in Ghana, in wherever it is. Right there and say you want to do exchange program. That's mobility. It's what you call it, really. So Canada effect. Why are people going to Canada? It's self-explanatory now. It's self-explanatory, Abby. Supposedly, there are job opportunities. I said supposedly because I know people who have left management staff jobs now and they are working in coffee shops. The truth is, not everybody has to drive a Jaguar, so it's okay if that is what your career aspiration is. So people are moving on because, hey, there's supposedly more job opportunities. They say it's safer and secure, but we left our houses this morning. By the grace of God, we're here, and we will return. Well, some of us in the room are already processing it. Good luck with that. But me, I'm still here because Nigeria will be better in my time. So, but I will do mobility. I will go, I will come back, I still come back here. So, but if you want to go, nothing wrong with it. But let's just understand the reasons behind it. Now, educational opportunities. So in some of these regions, schools are free or supposedly more available. Or, put it this way, they are more readily in tune with giving you the skills you need for the future. So which is also another reason why it's good to go on mobility experiences, because you get the skills that you ordinarily would not have here. Of course, personal freedom to live your life, do what you want to do. You don't have to find out family or culture or custom. So whatever moves your boat, man, go for it. And then of course, Nigeria Wahala. We're generally just tired of Wahala in Nigeria. But this is what I always ask people who tell me, oh, I'm moving this country now, and then I don't like it when people say this country. It quite upsets me when you say this country. So in Nigeria, nothing is working. So I always ask that question, who will fix it? Who will fix it? Because the countries we are running to, they went through this and even worse. So at least we didn't have Black Plague in Nigeria, where people were just dropping dead. So we didn't have those kind of things. We didn't have a situation where you had to fight for your land. We didn't have all those. So if we all keep running, who will fix Nigeria? And sometimes, unfortunately, some of the reasons why people are in a hurry to run away from their jobs is because of the inaction of some of us in this room. So I like that pledge we took earlier on during Jibola's session, because the burden is great. There will be no HR manager in the next 5 years, but people management has been identified by the World Bank as a critical skill. So in this room is that knowledge to propagate the ideas. Because you can have a mobility program, as some people do, but they use it to reward the people who did eye service the best. But you must understand how global mobility feeds into your organization's pipeline. You're using it to harness the skills you want, because you want to align your organization with global standards and best practice. You're using it to motivate the demographics you now have, because millennials don't come. Money is good, but millennials consider the opportunity for international experience and exposure greater than the naira and kobo they will get at the end of the day. So, let me go a bit more into the Canada effect. Oh, I have moved. Sorry about that. So, I do know of some organizations, when people tell them, I'm going to Canada and Australia, because ideally you have to go for like 6 months and then come back, or to get your PR and then come back. Because I know doesn't mean I'm doing it, but nothing wrong with doing it. But you now hear people say, our leave of absence policy says 2 years, and you are owing loans, and you are doing this, and you can't go. You must resign first. And my question is, when you do all of that and the person still goes, there are many ripple effects that you haven't even considered. And I've had cause to talk to a few of my colleagues who are line managers. I say, could you have done it a bit differently? Because I can move to Canada and still remain an employee of the organization if you have a mindset that embraces mobility. Once I have internet, I have clear JDs, I have clear expectations. And so such a person goes to Canada, and while they're trying to settle into the realities of living in a new organization, they are still earning some money. They are still in tune with you. The mileage from making it easy for them to settle there, even though they're no longer an employee in the sense of it, they never forget. And employee advocates are better than any other job advert you would ever place, or any other recruitment exercise you would ever place. So even if the person created a gap by leaving, and you say, you know what, I'm looking for talent, who can you possibly introduce to come to me? What kind of person do you think they will recommend to take up their spot? Sorry? The best, because you have taken care of them. So the employee experience does not start and stop with when I enter and when I drop a letter. And that also affects your employer brand. They like when those ones, they allow you work seamlessly. It's a very good place to work. Whether you're a woman, it doesn't matter. So some of the policies that we're still promoting in our organizations, we need to look at it and see whether it would actually take us beyond the next 2 or 3 years. Chibola said something, a man can have 50 employees and be sitting in his office. Now, the minute you have more of your people who want to go to Canada, and you say, you know what should have the opportunity for you to continue working on? So that you have not qualified for leave of absence, but you can do this. You just need to apply, you just need to do this. We'll agree with those kind of things. You actually have savings as an organization. It even gives you an opportunity to begin to suggest that you're a multinational. So let's think differently about some of these things that we're doing regarding whether global mobility is something we should run away for. Oh, my people are going to Australia and Canada. It's a bad idea. There is technology. Let's embrace it. The policies are not meant to be boxes. They are meant to be guidelines. So let's begin to look at some of those things differently. Now, what are some barriers? So again, there's expensive relocation costs. But the truth is, this is only when it is the organization looking at it. If it's me as an individual and I say, you know what, I'm going to Canada, Australia, but I really like working here, I want to stay working. Okay, fine, no problems. This is what it is you will do. Remember that the way you calculate costs as an organization is the square meter where you sit. So I would save on the square meter I have for you sitting down there. If you now go on and become a correspondent staff, I am absorbed of certain requirements. So for example, you won't be contributing to pension in Nigeria when you're trying to be a foreigner in another country. You would save on HMO costs because you would not be using HMO in Nigeria. So there are lots of benefits that will come from embracing that mindset of acting globally. Now, skills gap owing to mobility of competent personnel. I think that one is a reality we have to deal with. People will continue to move. But what we can do is make sure our knowledge management framework in our organization is such that whenever anybody gets a skill, you set up the work in such a way that part of their development, they're compelled to train others. And please, it's not by putting people in bonds. I actually think bonds are quite ineffective because in Nigeria, there's something called restraint of trade. If I go to industrial courts today, I will win. Simply summarizing without being a lawyer is to say you cannot prevent a man from eating from the only way he knows how to. Now, because we are not in tune to our rights in Nigeria yet, a lot of HR practitioners do things that I know in the next 2, 3, 4 years will get them into trouble. Because industrial court first will judge on the favor of the employee before they begin to consider the antecedents. So bonding is not the way to prevent people from going. It's to make sure that you want to move up. I've trained you, you train others to do it in a way in which you know how to. Apart from the fact that it creates a knowledge environment, it also promotes a culture of sharing and teamwork. With technology, you can be in Europe or wherever and still join meetings. These days, we have WhatsApp, we have all sorts. So let's begin to think in mind of enablement and not restriction. Difficult quantifying return of investment. So again, that is a perception. Because I said to you, for example, you have 5 of your organization or your staff who have moved to Canada, like that department I talked about. It's the audit team. 23 of them in a given year actually moved to Canada. A lot of them will not have found jobs immediately, but you can still offer them the opportunity of doing the work remotely. And you create system or agree how you compensate them. And by all means, you would not suffer the loss of you losing your team. Because in that case, it was triggered by themselves. They moved to Canada. You can't stop it. But you can do a lot more to maintain the connection with them while they're away. Now, what are some of the policies we can put in place? Well, this is just a guide. So one is have a global career development platform. This can both be formal and informal. I'm not sure there's anyone in this room that does not belong to one group or the other that has people from all over. So it's the same thing. People are constantly looking for internships, for training opportunities, for exchange opportunities. You need to connect with those groups and understand what the opportunities are. Our vendors, let's begin to ask them that, oh, this sales manager on your, I want the person to just see a sense of how you work. Let's begin to have those conversations. So you are HR doesn't mean that you cannot sit in your management meeting and say, you know what, part of our talent management strategy is to give our employees the opportunity to understand where these products we're selling come from. You are in a service function. Nothing wrong in saying you want to do an exchange. So you create space, I create space. Someone goes for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 6 weeks. They come back, they share experiences. You also give them tools to commit to doing the improvements they gathered. It's win-win for all. You also need to ensure that the program provides long-term benefits. I know a company that when they send you on training, they won't give you per diem. They'll tell you that because they created the opportunity for you to go to London. I find it a bit strange. So if you're going to do these kind of things, it's important to be open and upfront. If you know that you're just creating the opportunity and buying tickets and you cannot afford per diem or whatever, those are conversations you can have. But the truth is, we don't need for it to be formal, for it to work like a typical professional services firm. But let's be very open in terms of making sure the benefits are clear. If I say, you know what, we'll buy you tickets, but in London, would you mind staying with a friend? Or would you mind doing so? People are willing to have those conversations if you're open and upfront. And then let us also be clear to people the criteria with which you have selected the beneficiary. Then, of course, we also need to be highly responsive to requests from millennials. I can't overemphasize this a lot. If you still have those millennials have come again approach, it's not likely that in 5 years, your organization would have the kind of staff you need. Millennials are actually very qualified, very competent, very inquisitive, and then they're even able to churn out work much faster than you would because they're born in technology. They would find easier and better ways of doing it. So it's important to revisit our strategy to how we're managing millennials. These guys want to travel. Mobility is a key ingredient for retaining millennials. So we have to look at how we can entrench mobility in our programs at work. And then making it more financially rewarding. So financially, yes, I suggest Naira and Kobo, but it's also the experience. If you tell me you're telling me to go abroad for 6 weeks to work in your partner organization, it needs to be clear what I'm going there to do. I shouldn't go there and then I'm that guy from Nigeria, that lady from Nigeria. They sit me at the table morning till night. I don't do meaningful work. I will come back and I will leave. So you're probably thinking, okay, it looks like you can't win either way. But you need to sit down and have it clear in your mind. The truth is mobility should be a requirement of how we plan workforce. Don't be planning that anybody would be in your organization forever. 2 years is now the new 10 years. So the minute someone has stayed 2 years in your organization, have it in mind that the person is looking for a newer experience. Maybe not a new job, a newer experience. So if you want to keep that person, one way to do it is to look at options for mobility. And it's not always training. So we've sent you for training. You went for a SHRM conference. Those are great. But people are looking for meaningful experiences all around. So, in terms of driving corporate sustainability, because that's what this is all about, we would always need skills to work, and skills will always be in short supply. So, from get-go, we need to plan for how we want to find people, what we do with them when we find them, and then with the good understanding that these guys are not going to be with you for 20 years. So it has to be clear at what point you want to have extracted value, how you want to add value, basically. So all of us say, we've done graduate training program. We expect they'll be with us for 20 years. So this is the cost of the training. Those things don't work anymore. Build in attrition into your workforce plan. Build in mobility. And then consider mobility as a mechanism to manage or slow down the impact of attrition. You also want to make sure that you understand the policies around mobility. There are certain countries that the person can't even walk into an office without without a business visa. You want to make sure that as HR, you are equipped with those things so that when you're recommending it, you have thought about the implications beyond just financial. There are also the regulatory aspects of it. You also want to make sure that you're not just doing mobility because Certification Ed said it's a reality or future of HR. You have to understand what benefits, the return on investment of such a program. That is the only way you can get management to actually key into it. And then finally, understand the changing requirements of workforce. You say, oh, she's a woman, she's not able to travel. When she marries, she'll start having children, her husband will go. You can actually work anywhere these days. And your valued employees, you need to listen to what they want. You need to be able to work with them so that man or woman, the business would always have the skills it needs at the right time and as needed. So with these few points of mine, I hope I've been able to convince you and not confuse you that global mobility is a reality and it is very important to making sure our businesses stay sustainable. Thank you very much.